Qualified Digital is the premier full-service customer journey experience agency. To find out how we can help your digital B2B and B2C offerings shine brighter, contact us at qualifieddigital.com. QD powers the Fuzzy app, which verifies online profiles in seconds. Your digital gut check for safer, real-life connection. Find it in the App Store or at fuzzyverified.com.
Diana.
Christine.
I'm just supposed to say Levain, or should I?
Levain or Levain?
Levain.
Levain?
We say Levain, right?
So
the French is Levain.
Okay, so if you're pronouncing it correctly, you're probably right. But I think that the way the people who own this company call it or pronounce it is Levain.
Okay. Do you know what a Levain is? What the French word means?
I think it has something to do with bread making.
If you have a sourdough starter, it's like the part of the sourdough starter that you supercharge with flour and get ready to bake with.
This explains a lot because when I was Googling this company, I kept pulling up all these like bread baking recipes. Yeah. I'm like, this is not helpful. But yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah. It's kind of a neat word.
If you can pronounce it. This is From the Ground Up. I'm Diana Ransom.
And I'm Christine Ligorio-Chafkin. Today's episode, The Best Cookie Story.
So, Christine, I spoke with the co-founders of Levain Bakery, Pam Weekes and Connie McDonald. They are celebrating their 30th anniversary this year.
Wow. Wait. Okay, so Levain is 30 years old. I feel like I've only heard about this bakery in the past 3 years.
Yes, me too. And
I live in New York City. I have lived here for 2 decades.
And here's the thing. They became, like, quote unquote, the best cookie in New York City in 1997.
Wow.
Amanda Hesser, you know Amanda Hesser from Food 52.
Of course.
She was working at the New York Times and I think living on the Upper West Side. Popped into this little, little storefront, cute little storefront. I don't exactly know the name of the streets, but whatever. She popped in, had this delightful cookie, wrote up a really super short little snippet about the best cookie in New York City.
Wow.
And that effectively put this company on the map. Like they just became known for their cookies.
Wow. And it was Amanda Hesser. That's amazing.
And it was Amanda Hesser.
Yeah.
It's just like the fortuitousness of this moment. So anyway, 1997, flash forward to the fact that you and I both did not hear about the quote unquote best cookie in New York City. But all of a sudden, they're everywhere.
Not just everywhere. These cookies are huge.
Yes.
Like,
they're monsters.
I feel like they're so notable because they are a giant chunk of cookie and expensive, right? I mean, it's like an expensive
they're probably
cookie.
Pretty normal price.
You think that's normal price?
Well, you don't like cookies that much, but cookies are about that.
So you're saying
that price.
How would you
don't
know?
have the frame of reference for buying cookies.
I wouldn't know.
They're not that expensive, especially if you're getting like such a monster of a cookie. So yeah, they're really great. But like you, I hadn't really heard of them until one of my students came in with a big batch of cookies, and I was like, "What are these hulking beasts?" And then, of course, learned about them. But I think it's a testament to the fact that they've had a really slow, organic growth story. You know, they started out with the one lone shop, and then they realized all my customers are flocking away from the city. They're leaving the city in the summertime. They're all going out to the Hamptons or something like that. So they opened up the one more shop like 5 years down the road from their start date, and they just have been growing really slowly since then. And then they had an investor come in. It was a sort of like strategic investment.
Sure.
And then they actually had money to invest in like much more of a bigger footprint for them.
Yeah. So now how many shops do they have today?
I think they have about 16.
Oh, cool.
And they're growing. Yeah, they just opened up a location in Hollywood, and I think they have a new location in Venice, both in California. Yeah. So they're covering the coasts at this point.
Yeah.
But, it seems like indicative of like a growth story still.
Yeah, absolutely. And what did you start by asking them about?
So Pam and Connie started out our conversation by describing the unusual way they met.
Pam and I met in like 1987, swimming in a swimming pool in Midtown. And we became fast friends and started training and doing triathlons together.
Right. And what were you doing at the time?
You name it, I was doing it.
I was working in the fashion industry.
Okay. With like Norma Kamali,
yes,
right?
Yeah, actually.
Big brands like that.
Not when I first met Connie. Well, between
Yeah.
before and after.
Right,
That's a
right,
safe
right.
answer.
And Connie, you were an investment banker?
I was doing, at that time, but right before we started the bakery, I was kind of doing retail sales, cold calling in an investment bank.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's like boiler room kind of
Brutal.
stuff. Wow.
Really
yeah.
brutal.
So you met in a swimming pool because you both are triathletes? You are triathletes, or you
Yes.
were?
We weren't when we met, though, actually. I mean, I swam for most of my life, I guess, and I love swimming. And I eventually got back into a pool, in my mid-20s, and that's where I met Connie. And I think that she's more of an all-around athlete, but she always liked swimming, so...
And you were both training at the time for
Fitness.
Yeah.
Soon after we met, there was a group of guys that we were swimming with in the same lane, and they had just started doing triathlons, and they were like, "You guys really have to try. It's so much fun." And so we did.
It just sounds
And then
so brutal.
I know, but it's
Really
kind of
fun.
like
It's kind of
fun.
addicting.
What made you want to think about starting a business?
So we were training for Ironman, and it's, we were both working full-time jobs. So Saturdays, I guess, we did like long bike rides, and that was, usually like 80 to 125 miles, something like that. And so it gives you a lot of time to think about your life and what you're doing, and you're not riding hard that whole time. So, you have time to chit-chat, and that's when we sort of discovered that we had both had this dream of having our own business.
And did you know it would be a bakery?
No.
No.
And it wasn't even together. We were thinking about ideas for each other, and then it started then we were thinking, oh, maybe we should try something together. But, we thought about a bike touring company, a women's sports clothing store, because at that point, there were, as for female athletes, there weren't a lot of options.
Yeah. And this was around 1987?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Or
And in the meantime,
1990 maybe by then.
we had become roommates because,
Okay.
financially, it's like we were both. I was living in Brooklyn, and
My rent was
Pam-
way too much. I was like, I had to change this.
so we became roommates, and I was really so unhappy with what I was doing. And ironically, we were living in an apartment on 92nd between 1st and 2nd, and as you walk west to the subway, or as I did, on 92nd Street, there was a cooking school on the second floor, and I had been doing some catering and was really loving that, and I would kind of walk by and look up in the windows and thought, wow, that looks just so great. And then, make a long story short, I finally got fired from my last job.
No surprise.
Yeah, I deserved it. I needed to be let go. And, so I enrolled in that school.
Okay.
And which was great. And I was there that I thought maybe I'd be a caterer, but it was there that I discovered bread baking.
And you would bake bread at home, theoretically? Pam would enjoy it, or would...
Well, what was really fun about her being in school is that she'd get home way before I would, and she'd be in the kitchen practicing what she learned that day. So she would, she went to culinary school, so there was everything. I probably ate better that year than...
Yeah, I took it very seriously because I kind of thought this is my chance to do something that I felt really passionate about, which I hadn't had that feeling. So it was, it was really exciting. The bread baking, every student who was in the school had to take turns baking bread for the school for the week. Most people found that they just really didn't like it, and I just loved it. And so...
I grew up baking bread and baking, and my mother was an amazing cook and sort of really ahead of herself, and that we had no packaged foods and all that sort of thing. So I think I took it a lot more for granted, whereas Connie did not, and she really appreciated.
Yeah. It's sort of mind opening in a way.
For sure.
But your mom is also the sort of the inspiration for the eventual cookie, right?
Well, for one of them, for
one
the
of them.
dark chocolate peanut butter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why 6 ounces? Why did cookies become your, I guess, leading product?
That's kind of a twofold answer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So 6 ounces, I think, for us, we started making them for ourselves, and I have to have dessert after every meal, and I love it has to be satisfying. It can't just be junk dessert.
Wait,
So,
is this just because you're a triathlete, or because
No,
you
just because
you
I'm
just
me.
enjoy dessert? Okay.
I just
Yeah.
enjoy dessert. So at 6 ounces, we discovered that this cookie is really it's great to share, and we both love to share our food. It's really crunchy on the outside. It's soft and gooey inside. As it cools, gets a little bit firmer. It's just very satisfying, you know.
Yeah, it gets a little scone-like as it cools in a
Yeah.
way.
It's a little cake-like. It's a little cake, a little
yeah.
cookie. And we both love nuts in our desserts. So the chocolate chip walnut was a natural.
Yeah. And like ironically, we didn't weigh it in the beginning. It was just
No.
like we would just kind of like make this dough and just kind of like portion it out. And I guess
When we
we
started making it
doing
at
that
the
at the
bakery,
bakery. And it was like,
we're
it just
we have
turned
to
out it
weigh
was 6
these.
ounces.
Oh, right,
like,
right,
okay.
yeah. You have to be kind of precise when it comes to baked
Yeah.
goods, right?
Yeah. So in order to even just like price things out and,
Yeah.
things like that.
So it's always so interesting what becomes like the hero product of a company, or your customers end up kind of telling you what direction you should be going in. Obviously, you're still making bread and you're still making muffins and all that at all the locations. But was it surprising to find that people were really receptive and responsive to the cookies, more so than even the bread that you'd worked so hard on?
Well, I mean, we were
bit.
just really thankful that there was a line for anything. It was just like some people would ask us, like, are you upset that there's a line for the cookies and not the bread? And I'd be like, I'm thankful that there's this enthusiasm about anything that we're making. And then when we thought, oh, well, maybe people aren't really that interested in other things that we're making, and you go to eliminate that, then you find out that there is a real passion, maybe just not at the level that is for the cookies, but
So did you try that? Did you try to take something away and then
We
people
did.
responded? Okay.
Yeah, and people were really unhappy. But it's funny, when we started, we had this vision of this artisan bread bakery, which is what we really were. And we made a lot of different types of breads, and we had ideas for making more. And then we were thinking, oh, maybe someday we'll have wine and cheese and have this little, it was a completely different vision than where we are now. We made the cookies and they really took off, and we were just happy
Right.
to be in business.
Yeah. I mean, and it's also like you're still making the thing. It's not like it's
Yeah.
someone's actually telling you, we want hair products
exactly.
instead of your baked goods.
Right.
So it could be worse, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's been 30 years since you
Yeah,
started.
isn't that incredible?
Since you started your first, or since you launched your first store. It's incredible, and congratulations! What
Thank
a
you.
milestone!
Thank
How are you
you.
feeling at this moment? Looking back at your careers.
We have, because of its 30 year, and we are having some special things with regard to the anniversary and things, so that there has been a lot of reflection.
And you have a book coming out too,
We
right?
do.
Yeah.
And with people that we haven't seen in decades participating in this book and telling their stories, it's been
I think that's
little
really driven at
emotional.
home. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were joking about being emotional before, but that has
Yeah.
been a little emotional because, it's been really amazing to talk to people and hear what they remember.
What's the focus? Is it more of like where they were when they first encountered your cookies, or is it like people's different? What's the focus of the book?
It's a brand book, really, and it talks about the origin of the bakery and how we got from where we started to where we are now. And, a big part of that for us, Connie and I both feel like, the most important thing that we've done is the people part of it. So, the culture, the brand, and that's like our customers, our vendors, our team members. And so we've been in touch with a lot of people over the years, but there are a few people we haven't been. And so to talk to them again, and it's really
and to
nice.
see like how psyched they were to come back. They're like, they don't live in New York anymore. Like, of course, I'll come and get my picture taken and I'll do a story. And
Yeah. It's
so
amazing.
fun.
It's really
like
nice.
Pam said, it really is, and it may sound kind of corny or whatever, but it completely, for both of us, is all about the people that we've met and the relationships we have. That's the important part to us, and that's what's made it really amazing.
Well, there's something about like working in a not necessarily a restaurant, or maybe even a restaurant, or like in a bakery. Probably a similar idea is that you're kind of like you're in it together. You're down in
Yeah.
the trenches.
Yep.
You're like burning your hand on something, and you're upset at some
true.
customer, and you're kind of going through all that together. So I can imagine you're forging these really tight
Yeah.
bonds with people.
So, and we just had so much fun.
Yeah. And we have amazing customers. We have, we opened on 74th Street, and we know probably most of the block and all of the kids who grew up on that block, and many of them worked at the bakery at one point or another. And so we have amazing relationships, and we've built friendships, with people that we socialize with now.
That's interesting. So as the company has grown, you started out on 74th and Amsterdam on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And then since then, you kind of grown I wouldn't say exponentially, but you've grown quite a bit. So now you're in the middle of launching your 17th location, which is very impressive. How are you approaching store launches now versus like what you thought you would be doing back then?
Well, we're really careful because we want to make sure, ideally, that every location we open feels just like 74th did. You know, we want it to be a neighborhood bakery. We want it to be a part of the community. That's really important to us.
So what do you look for? You look for like thriving communities, or, you know, you wouldn't necessarily launch in a strip mall kind of thing, right? Or
Hopefully not.
Right. I know.
Right.
We look for a place where it looks as though, there would be a community. There's an opportunity to get to know people, that it's not just like, you know, a transit hub where people are just like frantically running toward. We always say when people think, oh, this would be great, look at the foot traffic. It's like, well, that's fine, but it has to be like the right foot traffic. You know, and the right kind of people. And
so the idea is you want to be where people live.
Where they live and they work. And it doesn't, like, both Connie and I really are big fans of opening in kind of an up-and-coming area, not necessarily a really developed area when possible. You know, when we opened on 74th, that wasn't the nicest neighborhood, perhaps. I mean, it's changed drastically. It's fun to be able to open and grow with a neighborhood, I guess is my point.
And I think we also really want to make sure that, as best we can, that the bakery and the brand stays as special as it possibly can be. And, you know, we never want to hear people or overhear people saying, you know, oh, another one, you know, or, you know, that kind of thing.
Remember when.
Remember when it used to be so good. So
what's the limit? I mean, you have 17 stores now, and then you're launching 2 more, one in Beverly Hills, one in Chicago, right?
Yes, in Lincoln Park.
So when do you think it's too much? When are we saturated with Levains?
That's a question that we talk about a lot. Yeah. I mean, it's a big country. It's a big world. I think there's a lot of opportunity. But I think, you know, we really want to be selective, and we're not in any hurry, obviously.
Yeah. That's great. So you were talking about store launches and kind of what goes into finding a new location and like how much you factor into each shop. What was it like to go from one store to the second store? Was it a dramatic change? Did you feel like you were being pulled in 2 different directions and it was hard, or how did you make that work? Like, how do you clone you?
That's The first 2 stores weren't too hard because there are 2 of us. Yeah. So it wasn't, you know, it had its moments, but it was, you know, we could divide and conquer, which is pretty much what we did for a long time. You know, now it gets a little trickier because we can't be everywhere. But now we're in the lucky place to have a big team. And so that makes a huge difference.
So this goes back to the idea of building a culture that kind of will stand on its own.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because it's really interesting. This is part of the book, too, that I think is also a really interesting thing, because a lot of people ask us for advice in how we did this and how we're still doing this. And so we had a private equity investment in like 2018. And
from a company called Stripes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And before that, we had a lot of people who were very interested because, you know, they'd see the lines and they were just intrigued by the business and would contact us and either want to franchise, invest, buy, whatever. And we met several people, and they were all great people. But when push came to shove, by the end of the day,
it just wasn't the right fit. Like, we didn't have the same vision.
And, right. And we thought, thank you very much, but, you know, we're just going to kind of keep going. And we met Stripes, and they reached out to us, and we finally met them. And we had this feeling, which is great, because Pam and I always have this.
We're big on our gut feelings.
Right, but we always have the same gut feeling, which is
That's
such
great.
a blessing. It's incredible. And, you know, we met them, and we knew, because we love our team so much and we love the bakery so much, that we knew we had to make the right decision for everybody's future. And when we met Stripes, we knew that would happen with them. And what's really great, and we've said this all the time, 7 years later, we still say the same thing, which is kind of a miracle.
That is, absolutely. And then, so what, I was going back and reading some of the coverage on your, I guess, these encounters with past suitors for your company. I believe one of you said that they didn't even ask to visit a store.
A couple did, but most didn't. Like, especially, I mean, it was, They just wanted to see the numbers, and they had no interest in what was going on. It's like, you don't even understand this business. I mean,
Right.
because numbers are really important. This is another thing we talk about all the time. Numbers are so important. You have to know them, but you can't focus on them. You have to focus on the people, your team, the customers, the vendors, and your product, and if you take care of that, your numbers will be fine.
And that's our kind of
Yeah.
recipe for success. A lot of places don't do that. And we've hired people to come in and like be managers, and they've come in and through no fault of their own, just because that's just the way they are. And
That's what they know.
Exactly. And just putting way too much emphasis on numbers, and it just kind of ruins the whole culture.
Right. It doesn't work out.
Doesn't work
probably
out.
long term with that.
Even
those
short
people.
term.
Oh, that's good. Well, so you talk about kind of caring for your people, right? So what do you do? How do you do that?
No, I was going to say, so right from almost the beginning, we've had health insurance for everybody. We started profit sharing plan as soon as we could. We've always paid people more than the going market rate, as much as we could right from the beginning. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think there are a lot of different ways that we've done it.
Well, I also think just like on a human level, like we get to know everyone, like take an interest, and it's because genuinely we want to know. I want to know you, and I want to know your kids, and I want to know if you're okay, and I want to, and it's just like really
like real relationships.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you still do that as the company grows?
It's a lot harder.
Yeah.
But so I was going to say, when it was just Connie and I, we basically opened 4 locations. And so it was like one every 5 years. And I think that something that was really frustrating for the people who worked with us was that they didn't see an opportunity to grow as fast as they wanted to grow. So by taking on an investment, we were able to grow faster and give people, a clear vision to where they could grow, which has been really nice.
I was going to ask you what prompted the decision. Obviously, you met Stripes and you found that you thought they were a good fit, but what was happening in your lives that made it seem like this is the right time to do this?
Well, we had just come out of another crazy holiday season. So at that point, we were doing a huge percentage of our total business for the year in the few weeks between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So it was always really hard. And, we were growing, and we just thought, like, this is the right time. We really, need some help. And we were so busy all the time. And we didn't, we kept thinking we wanted to hire some kind of management team, put together a little more structure, but we just weren't doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was interesting because we actually contacted a person that we swam with, who she's so incredible. And she actually, I guess she's a coach. I don't know what the right word is.
She's done a lot of management consulting and coaching. And
we contacted her and just saying, like, what do we do here? How do we grow this? How do we build this management structure so that we can grow and we can give people who've been with us for a long time, like, this opportunity? So she came in.
At what point did she come in?
Like 2016. And, at that point we had about, I think, like maybe 50 employees. And she wanted to get to know, like, the business, every like nook and cranny of it. And this was like another emotional thing. Like, she spent so much time interviewing like every employee about us.
Well, about everything, but about us, yeah.
Well, we were everything.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of like, and she came back with the feedback, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and
I think it was mostly.
Oh, it was, but nothing's
Thank
perfect.
goodness.
It's hard to hear negative
It is,
feedback,
but it's
for
also
sure.
really it's also a really great way to grow. And so she also really helped us realize that we had to do something to
change
this. And so that she kind of set us up for being really open to the possibility of that.
Well, and a really interesting thing is that she said she was so inspired by what we had done and were doing that she went on to start her own company.
Oh, wow. I love that.
Which is really
I know.
nice.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
That's gratifying for sure.
It is.
I mean, I'm sure you've inspired a bunch. I mean, this is, I don't actually know if this is true, but one of the most popular, from what I understand, from what I've heard, the lore is, one of the most popular for dummies books is How to Start a Bar. I think that How to Start a Bakery is probably also one of these really popular businesses. It's like something magical about it.
Sure.
You're making these delightful things and people end up in your case, lining up for them.
Smells good. It makes you feel good.
Right. And I think so many people love to bake. And so they think, I love to bake, so I'll start a bakery.
But there's much more to it. You all could have just had a little bakery and that'd have been fine. But you were systematic about growing it in a slow way, right? And you lucked out a few times over the years. So there was a 1997 review by Amanda Hester, by the way, which is kind of wild that it was her.
Amazing.
From Food 52.
Yep.
So she wrote that, this is a quote, the largest, most divine chocolate chip cookies in Manhattan. And
Isn't that
that's in the
amazing?
New York Times.
Yeah.
So what happened initially right after that review came out?
The phone started ringing.
Yeah.
Well, that
And
was
people-
also,
Well, people were calling from all over the country. And it's everybody at that time got the morning paper and read it. But to be getting calls from all over the country, before noon was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. But that was pre-internet or early stages of the internet?
Early stages, yeah. So
Was
the first
it
thing,
even
yes, just
It was-
beginning.
it was
yeah.
there.
Leave it to me not to know. That's a little something you'll find out about me.
So the first thing I was like, okay, how are we going to get all these people the cookies they want to try?
Well, the first thing was because we knew it was going to happen
Yeah.
because she had called the night before to kind of fact check. And so she had told us it was going to, and so I said that morning, I was like, I'm going to the newsstand. And Pam's like, just read it before. Because if it's not good, don't buy it.
'Cause
Don't waste
no
the
extra money. Don't
right?
waste the money.
Oh, right.
Right. It's
You have to be thrifty as
I know.
business owners.
Yeah. And so I read it and I was like, oh, thank God. So it was
Thank God. That's
Yeah.
it was a glowing
It was
review.
amazing.
It was
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
Did she live in the neighborhood? Was she just part of the community and just
She lived on the
happened
Upper
upon
West
her?
Side.
Yeah.
So the phone starts ringing off the hook. Were people then lining up?
No, not
No,
yet. I
okay.
mean, people were coming in, but it wasn't it was years
Wasn't
before we
like-
had lines.
Did you ever feel like it was going off the rails? Like, wait a minute, this isn't what I signed up for. I just wanted a cute little bakery. And no,
I don't think we
Connie,
had
you're
time to
shaking
even
your head.
think that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we were just having fun. I mean, it was great. I think we both like challenges, and it was great to keep growing and getting these challenges and learning. We had friends in business school at the same time we were starting the bakery. So we'd always compare notes, and they'd be talking about things, in theory, and we were doing it.
Yeah.
So we made some mistakes, but
So after this review came out, and it was a glorious review about the chocolate chip walnut cookies in the New York Times, you all started up a proto e-commerce site, and mail orders started coming in. The phone was ringing, people were calling in to get orders, and I believe I saw a stat that said something to the effect that the mail order business was grew by 1,600% over the next decade. Incredible stuff.
incredible.
Yes.
Yeah.
What actually was what was happening behind the scenes at that point?
Well, behind we were figuring out how to do it sort of on the fly. We had done a drop ship item for Williams-Sonoma, actually.
Oh, great.
So we had a little bit of an idea of how to do it. But as we grew, we kind of figured it out. And I think in that time period, we'd done some Food Network things. And so people were getting to know who we were, and we were getting more exposure, and there was more interest. And
So your phone's ringing more and more and more.
The internet actually...
But initially, it literally, the phone would ring, we would answer it, and then we would take these orders over the phone, complete with exactly what they wanted,
Well, we had a
what
form.
the gift card message was,
Oh, great.
Yeah.
and
we had a great toll-free number, 877-4-LEVAIN. I was so happy that we got a number that made sense.
Do you still have it?
We do.
So, Christine, let's chat for a minute about proto-internet days. Do you remember dial-up and
Oh my gosh, of course.
AOL? Yeah,
I can't even do it anymore. But it's been a long time. Yeah, but it's amazing that they were taking orders manually over the phone with that great toll-free number, right?
I know. They lucked out with such a brilliant number. But it's cool too because they were early to the capitalizing on the fact that people wanted the convenience of being able to order something.
Yeah.
And it's funny too because in our conversation they didn't even call it e-commerce. They were they demurred at that description. Wait a minute, it wasn't e-commerce. Oh wait, it was e-commerce. They were really early
so
to it.
early. It's been a foundation of their business. Yeah.
Right, and that set off the growth story for them in a big way. And I'm certainly looking forward to reading all about it in their new book that they have coming out. It's like a company book, but I think it's like mixed in with some fun recipe style stuff. And beautiful
so kind of like
photography.
a kitchen book, or like
Yeah, but it's more of like the business and growth story, and I think mixed in are the potential recipes. And if I'm wrong, sorry, ladies, but send me the book and I'll check it out.
Great. Well, I love the conversation so far. What do you guys talk about next?
So when we come back, Pam and Connie tell me about how they reacted to the national interest in their bakery and how they've managed to maintain such a good working relationship and, importantly, their friendship. I also ask them about the future after a quick break. After talking with you all about your history of being triathletes and then, enjoying a challenge, does this at all seem like you all were predisposed to running a quickly growing company?
Well,
I think we have that kind of personality.
Yeah, we've often said that. I honestly, and I'm not trying to pat ourselves on the back or anything, but, looking back on what we did, I don't know a lot of people that would have done what we did, because it's honestly we were working. And it didn't feel like a big deal, but we worked, at least 12 or 14 hours a day, 7 days a week for probably around, I don't know, 18 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
did you take vacations?
No, I'm
really.
saying.
Yeah, like literally worked. But we were having fun.
But it was just kind of.
And it was just, that was what we did.
Yeah. Well, you also, you worked together. You were roommates at one point, and you're friends. Were there any trying moments in your friendship, and did that ever feel like it was on the edge? It might be a funny question to be asking now,
but I think one thing, especially now, people don't understand is because now with what we're doing, we're pretty much always like working on things together and spending a lot of time together. We didn't spend any time together really after we started opening, the second location. So
I think that's a bit of
well, not none, but we're always in different places, and so I think that helped a lot. I mean, you would have to agree.
Yeah, but I prefer to think of it like I just feel really blessed to have such a great friend and someone that I honestly we never had. I mean, I'm not saying we never disagreed on anything, but not very often.
Not the important things.
Yeah, and I can certainly say that there was never like an overnight. I've never had a situation where it's like, I'm not talking to you it's like, that's just never happened.
Yeah.
So I feel really lucky to.
Well, I think neither one of us are really like not big screamers or fighters. It's like we can disagree and then discuss it and work it out. So.
When you do have a disagreement, how do you come to terms? Do you have to pull out the slideshow and prove your
It depends
case?
on what we're disagreeing on.
Yeah.
I'm a little more stubborn than Connie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to let an argument go on.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, I don't see any point of that.
Come to a resolution.
Let's not. Because usually it's never been anything.
So it's never been the big things. The big things that really matter, like we pretty much are always in agreement on. And it's kind of funny because even if we're like in a group of people, we're discussing something and it's being debated, we'll look at each other and realize that like we agree. So,
Yeah.
It's nice.
It's funny. I feel like some people just are irascible in some way. Like people just take the devil's advocate approach, even for no particular reason. It's just because they can see the other side.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just not helpful.
We have friends like that.
Yeah, me too. I know.
So after all these years, I mean, you've stayed friends, which is actually very, very impressive for business owners too, because it's like not only are you friends, but you're spending a lot of time together and you're making these really clutch decisions together, and it can be tough. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was also going to say it's kind of nice though because you have someone to back you up. People who start businesses on their own, like I always feel like, oh God, like. Who do they talk to? You have to have somebody to be able to talk to. So that's like a really plus side to.
Yeah, and then some people who I guess if it's like a couple And then they come home and they have rules like, okay, we can't talk about the business. We need to be humans and to be a couple too sometimes.
Right.
It's always interesting to hear how people make it work.
Yeah.
So back to raising money. Obviously, Stripes entering the picture was novel for you because you hadn't raised any outside or any institutional funding at that point.
No.
So what actually changed once you did welcome them in?
Well, nothing for the first meeting. It was so fun. 24 hours later, we were like, what's going to change?
Yeah.
It was nothing instantaneous. It was a very slow.
Well, we were still running the business.
Yeah.
But Stripes had introduced us to our CEO.
Okay.
Our first CEO that.
Did you feel pressured to bring somebody in, like a CEO?
Well,
No, they asked us if either one of us or both of us wanted to do it, and we said no. And they had been introducing us to all the people that we hadn't been able to sort of take the time to meet on our own. So it was really great to talk to all these people. So we had met our first CEO, Andy, before we even had the transaction, and we really
before
liked him.
you knew he'd be the CEO.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. But so let's say I think our transaction was in February, and I don't think Andy, was in another situation, so he couldn't start until April or May. Initially, nothing really changed. But then everything changed.
Well, it really enabled us to start, building out a management team, which we needed, a leadership team.
What goes into hiring for the C-suite in your view? Do they spend time in the kitchen? Do you make them make cookies?
Everyone.
Well, we like everyone to do that. Yeah.
Everyone goes through an initial onboarding. And they have to, right? Otherwise they wouldn't be able to lead the company in the way that we think they should, in the way that trying to fill at least the shoes that we had.
The management team, the C-suite, they're all there to support the bakeries. And so it's hard if they don't spend enough time in the bakeries or get to know, how we work in the bakeries, they're not going to be able to do that.
Right. So there's a period of time where they all have to kind of get, roll up their sleeves and actually make products.
Right.
And then do they go travel around all the stores and sort of what's part of the process?
Some of them do, and it sort of depends on the timing, when they start and what they need to do. But eventually, everybody does get to all of the stores. And many people come to all of the openings, depending on what else they're working on. So it's really nice.
Yeah, it's an incredible group of people. It's just
it's kept us really engaged because it's so amazing to be able to work with these people and, learn from them. That's really nice.
Yeah. We were not. I think at the time of the transaction, if you had told us that we 7 years later would still be this involved with the bakery and the company, we'd say I don't think so. But
do you feel very involved?
Oh yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You're still making day-to-day decisions?
We're involved.
Okay. Okay. You're consulted on the decisions.
Or we're not consulted. Or we're not consulted and I put my input in anyway. Whether it's wanted or not. But it's,
we
it's
spend
great.
a lot of time with people.
Yeah. You still go to the store openings, right?
Yeah.
So, actually, this is intriguing. I initially saw that you were launching in Beverly Hills, and I don't get a Levain vibe from Beverly Hills personally, but obviously I am not you all. So
well, that's what I said when we first started talking about it. But
it's ironic. I actually used to work around the corner. 40 years ago, I lived in LA for 2 years, and I worked around the corner on El Camino, and our store is on South Beverly, just south of Wilshire.
Oh.
And it's a completely different vibe than the north side of Wilshire.
Okay.
And so I was the same way. I was like, I don't know about Beverly Hills, but
it's very neighborhoody.
It's great.
Yeah, okay.
It is.
So
it's
exciting.
Really, yeah.
Yeah. You're I don't know about that area.
I know. I hear you, but believe me, it's going to be
I'm
great.
kidding. I'm totally kidding. Beverly Hills is lovely. But it's also it seems a little bit different than Upper West Side.
I know, but there
are neighborhoods everywhere.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, no, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
In fact, my first brush with Levain was, which I've been pronouncing it wrong for a couple of years, by the way. Levain, not Levain. I've been saying Levain.
It doesn't matter.
okay.
It's okay.
Yeah. So, but anyway, one of my students, I teach a class on feature writing, and it's usually an evening class. And one of my students brought in a couple of your cookies. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, what are these monstrous, yummy-looking cookies? And one one of them offered me some. And I was like, oh, no, thank you. But as soon as they mentioned it, they were talking about it as though there was this, of course, obviously, it's Levain. It was like being told about something that was so obvious that I'd never heard before, but it was like shocking that I had never heard of it before. And then I come to realize that you all are like a New York institution, been around for 30 years. I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe I'd never heard of these cookies. Anyway, first time I could get the opportunity, I went to your Broadway location and I went in and got some cookies. So anyway, lots of long story just for me to tell you my interaction with your brand. Like people are still finding you.
I love that. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing we should also say is that we still do all the product development, just the two of us.
Oh,
so
wow.
that's
Okay.
probably the place that we're most intricately involved. So
And we're still like the face of the bakery, which we love.
Of course. Yeah.
So it's great.
So you can kind of go back to doing fun stuff in a way.
Yeah, for sure.
Ideally.
And that is interesting. I was kind of wondering, like, what are your roles now? So it's more of like product development, or
That's probably, product development and maybe like things like this are probably the most important things we do. But, we still go on, real estate trips and have conversations about that.
Cool.
And
any more
certainly-
triathlons?
No, there's not time.
Yeah. Oh, really? It's because there's no time. That's amazing.
Yeah.
But it's all, I love this story about when you were doing these things and you required just more calories, and it was like, oh my God.
Oh, those
It
were
was
the
so
days.
much fun.
Yeah.
You could eat whatever you wanted and
so
not think
great.
about it.
Yes, I love
Yeah.
that idea.
Yeah, I
wanna-
know.
I want to
Yeah.
run a massive race just so I can eat one of your
It's
300
worth
cookies
it.
at one time. Is there anything you wish you would have done differently? Sort of now that we're kind of being reflective, 30 years out. Anything that kind of like sticks in your crawl about like how you started up and like anything you would have done differently?
I don't think so. It's like because everything that we did kind of served a purpose, even if it was just to teach us that we needed to do something else. Right? Would you?
Yeah. And, my road to the bakery was a very winding one. And I'm so, no. Since the bakery, no. Before, and I learned so many because I like made so many kind of like, I don't know if you call them mistakes before, just like kind of like growing pains or whatever they were that,
Well, you're just trying to find your way.
yeah.
Well, you had that perspective before you started.
Well, it's, it certainly gives you a great amount of empathy for people who are like trying to like
Figure out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then we were talking about like people who want to start a bakery. What would you tell them? Like what's the stuff nobody tells you?
I think the biggest thing is that like you need to be prepared to work harder than you ever expect and for longer than you probably ever expect you'll have to work that hard.
Yeah, and it's like, we loved it too. You have to really love it. Because it's like you may not make like a lot of money or anything, as long as you're doing what you love, it's just great. And so
Yeah, we didn't start the bakery to make a lot of money. I mean, and I don't think you should start a business to make a lot of money. You should start a business to do something you really enjoy doing, you really love, you really want to do, and it will probably work out.
Like we didn't have a business plan saying, we're going to have like these
Not
four
like a
stores, and then we're going to have this invest. It's just like it just kind of grew like organically and kind of out of necessity. And so, I mean, I wouldn't change a thing.
How do you avoid, I guess, falling into this? It's sort of a common situation where business owners, they work like you start the business because you're passionate about like making cookies or bread, and then you end up just spending all your time, doing marketing or sales calls versus actually making the thing. How do you prevent that from happening? Like, how do you book in time to do the things that you love?
Well, I think what I liked about starting it is that like you had to do everything. So there were certainly things that maybe you preferred, but for me, I like doing a lot of different things. Like I don't like to do the same thing every single day.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So it gave you that ability,
Yeah.
that flexibility to do
Yeah,
that.
to do a lot of different things.
And how about you, Connie?
I also think, and I'm sure it would probably be so different now, but when we started, things were like so simple then that there wasn't.
Yeah, this is like pre-social media.
Yes. This is pre-cell phones pretty much. And so it was like, we didn't have to do any marketing. You just opened the door. That was opening day. You just opened the door.
Mouth.
It was,
Yeah.
it's just everything grew organically.
Simpler times.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And we didn't do any marketing. We didn't do any sales calls, or it just kind of.
If you were starting up the business now, how different would it be? Would it be
So different.
immediate?
Totally different, I think.
yeah.
I think it would be really hard to do it the way we did it because it's just a different world. I mean, it's so funny because I feel like 30 years has gone by in a flash. How did we get here? But then when you start thinking about all the different things that have happened and all the different things that you've done, it's like, wow, it has been 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how the world has changed, and it's like it's crazy.
Well, it's really funny because we're getting so many requests from our marketing team. Don't you have any pictures? It's like, well, we weren't running around. We didn't have cell phones.
We didn't have cell phones.
What, you think we're at the bakery working,
Right.
like, oh, let's stop and take a picture. It just didn't happen.
Right.
It was like so different.
It was just so different.
You'd probably be, Instagram influencers or some kind of influencers.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think it would be really fun to start a business now, but it would be completely different from the way we started.
Would you ever do it again, like another bakery? Like, could you do that? You
Another
probably
bakery?
couldn't. Yeah. Have you thought about another business?
I have, but I think at this point, by the time I'm done with this, I'm going to want to just like do some other things.
Yeah. Well, that's do you have any thoughts on like what's next for Levain?
I hope just
I just hope it's just like more
Continuing.
like, I know that there's going to be growth because it's like, we have, the investment and things, and that's what they
forward.
do. But I just hope it's like that it's going to be as careful as it has been up until now, because it's like we're still really proud and really excited of everything we're opening. And
Well, I think
I'm
that
just
everybody
hopeful
at the
that's way it
bakery,
stays.
not just us, I think that everybody really appreciates like the community that we have and the culture that we have. And I think, I love hearing people say, oh, we want it to be like this for another 30 years. That's like the best thing you could ever hope for.
I guess as we sort of close, any parting advice for fellow entrepreneurs who are, maybe not bakery owners, but other people who want to who are emerging and who want some advice?
I mean, we say it all the time. It's like every business, it may be a bakery business. It's not the same as, another type, but you're pretty much encounter the same problems. And I think loving what you do and surrounding yourself with people that you really care about, and not worrying that you're not the smartest person in the room is like
and
key.
don't give up, because I think that people have I think there are a lot of good ideas out there, and I think people start amazing businesses, but they get frustrated that it doesn't become, overnight successful. That's not realistic. Like, if you have this great idea and you're having fun, stick with it.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having us.
It's been so much fun.
Over the past 3 decades, Pam and Connie have built their bakery by trusting their instincts, something that's easy to lose sight of in a fast-paced world of trends and quick growth. What stood out in this conversation is how much they value the intangible, how they feel. Yes, your numbers matter, but so does your gut. As a founder, you know the vision and intention of what you're building. Honoring that is just as important as any data point. As they continue adding locations across the country, I especially loved hearing about how they're working to replicate the spirit of their original Manhattan neighborhood bakery in local communities that they enter. And the main takeaway here is just like what Connie referenced: stick to what makes your brand special.
That's all for this episode of From the Ground Up.
Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice. Also, if you like this episode or have suggestions of topics you'd like to hear about, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or reach out to us on all of the Inc.'s social channels.
From the Ground Up is produced by Blake Odom and Avery Miles with Diana Ransom and myself, with help from Sam Gebauer and Hawa Otori. Editing by Matt Totter. Mix and sound design by Nicholas Torres. Our executive producer is Josh Christensen. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.